Welcome back to GMA3. Americans are planning trips abroad in record numbers. With that, the demand for passports was described as unprecedented by the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. And some say it's taking up to 4 months to process a routine passport application.
That's a long time. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. Thanks a lot for joining us, and good to see you as well.
Good to see you again as well.
So this isn't the first time that you've addressed this issue. You reached out to the State Department in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, again in 2021. The State Department is saying the longest average processing time right now is 13 weeks. You say it's worse than that. So give it to us. What's it actually looking like?
Yeah, I would tell first, if you're planning to travel abroad for business, for family vacation, for a honeymoon, get a passport first before you actually get your ticket, because it's not 13 weeks in most cases. We have passport applications that are 5 months or longer that they're still waiting at this point. And even when people pay the extra amount to get an expedited passport, they're still taking 3-4 months to even get an expedited passport. So check your passport and see if it's going to expire before you plan to travel and get that going, because you're right, a lot of people are planning to travel now coming out of the pandemic, but they're not getting a passport in a timely method. To give you just a picture of this, there are 3 million passports right now that are on hold, that are going through the process. Part of this was a collapse of an online system that the State Department tried that didn't work. Part of it's just the number of people applying.
And Senator, the initial backlog stems from March 2020 when the government paused processing passports. Right. You say it never kept up with demand, especially when they talk about, travel restrictions there. So right now, what are the issues surrounding the passport application process?
So if we go back during the time of COVID, it backed up to about 1.7 million passports in backlog. We come out of COVID and they never caught up from there. We're now at 3 million in the backlog. In the meantime, the State Department, rightfully so, tried to do a renewal process. That's an online renewal process where you can go through and do it, and they tried to put that software into place to do it, and they're finding out that created even more problems on it, that if it doesn't get processed exactly correctly, no one really knows where it is anymore, and it's caused a lot of extra time on it. So there was a failure of their software system when they tried a new system here in this last year, and then they just don't have enough staff to be able to turn this around. They will eventually get caught up. They need to add more staff to it. They need to fix this online system to make sure that's correct. They need to have more people that are actually adjudicating those that have the last minute questions to be able to get it. This is going to take time and people, but in the meantime, we're trying to be able to help the State Department to be able to get this fixed, and also encouraging Americans apply very early for a passport, because it may take a very, very long time.
Hey, you say the situation is only going to get worse. In your letter to the Secretary of State, what are some of the other issues that you're asking him to address?
Well, obviously, we deal with the personnel issue. They've got to just get the right people hired in the right places, get them trained and equipped to be able to answer questions. Plus, this is an issue with their online system they created. Typically, now, if you apply and you mail off your passport, go through that process, it has a regular, what they call gating systems, where it goes through each gate and you can track it. And when someone calls us in the congressional office and says, hey, I can't get an answer on this, we can call, find out where it is, and be able to help them through the process. This new online system they created doesn't allow that. They literally don't know where it is in the process, if it's lost, how fast it's going to happen, and so it's causing a lot of anxiety for people, and a lot of folks are calling every congressional office, both House and Senate, and saying this is a problem. So we're trying to help them walk through this process, but Secretary of State's just got to assign more people to it, and has got to get this online system fixed.
I want to switch gears here. We have to ask you about this before you go. The debt ceiling. We're less than a month to possibly not being able to pay the bills as a country. How close are you guys into getting this sorted out?
Well, this is actually going to be an issue between the Speaker of the House and the President. Both Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell both said, hey, the answer is not going to run through the Senate on this. It's going to run between the House and the White House. So the sooner the House and the White House can sit down and talk about differences and try to address what every American knows is a problem, not just the debt ceiling being a problem, but actually our debt being a problem, and to start this dialogue, the sooner the better on it. But frankly, there's been lots of times we've had a debt ceiling increase that's also had some sort of structural change to it. Some have been small, some have been large, but that's pretty common. We're the only country in the world that has a debt ceiling like this one. And so the reason we have a debt ceiling vote at all is so we'll have to stop as a Congress and a White House, talk about where we are in debt, and say, do we need to make a correction? So it's a reasonable, rational thing to look at $31 trillion in debt and to say, okay, let's talk about if we need to make some changes here before we just keep piling more debt on.
All right, Senator Lankford of Oklahoma, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet. Good to see you again.
All right.